Welcome to the admittedly very meta how to Twitch on Twitch stream. This took a little bit of finagling to make work, but I'm excited. I'm excited for it. And this comes out of a couple of people asked me last week how to sort of get started on this because they're like, Jim, you're a goddamn always online internet nerd, and I went, yes. I've been streaming for. I have been making YouTube stuff since like 2013. God, and I have been streaming for at least 5 years, doing like charity streaming events and work streaming events and weekly streaming horse shit. I cannot teach you how to be a successful Twitch streamer, but I can teach you the nuts and bolts of how all the fiddly pieces work. And that is the goal for this evening. It'll probably take about, I want to say like 40 minutes, maybe less, depends on questions and things like that. Lesson 1, always make sure you have more water than you need, as I am currently out. And then afterward, we're going to, Noisy, absolutely live stream all kinds of things. Like, that is the wonderful thing. Twitch has a whole science and technology section. It has a creative section. We're also going to walk through how to stream on YouTube and right, you can stream on Mixer. You can stream all kinds of stuff. And you can do it all using the same setup. And you can do it all for free. And I'm getting ahead of myself. So yeah, the goal here for tonight is afterward we're going to play some Final Fantasy, which is a pretty good time. But the goal is to talk about not just how to stream, but how to stream using free software on a rig and a connection that aren't super involved, right? Like my setup here, I have lights. I obviously have a green screen. I have 2 computers, right? This is one computer. And then we're doing the stream off a separate computer. And you don't need to do any of this, right? Streaming setups are very person specific, and they're very much a thing that you design for you, right? The point is that they can be very expensive, or they can be very inexpensive, right? You can stream to Twitch off just a laptop. It helps if you have like an external webcam, but you don't need one. And the software that does the heavy lifting is free, which is very nice. So Twitch streams and streams in general have 3 sort of main parts. You have a source, which is a thing that you are streaming, right? That's right now it's my screen. It might be a camera. It might be a game. It might be a movie, right? If you want to do like a watch party. All kinds of stuff like that. It might be a slideshow, right? And we'll walk through how to sort of set a bunch of that stuff up. It has software, and the software does all the work to connect your computer with the service that you're streaming on. So our software for tonight is Xsplit. Xsplit Broadcaster they have a couple of different software offerings. Broadcaster is the one that I use because it's a bit more high-tech than Gamecaster, which is sort of just designed to stream games. But it is free, and I signed up for a new free version because I have a license. I bought one way back. But I signed up for a new free version to make sure that what I'm showing people is the free one and not the licensed one, because there are a couple of differences. The other big one is OBS, which is an open source broadcaster. It is also free. It's really robust. It's more fiddly, and I don't know how to use it. But I know that lots of successful streamers do. And the answer is that I think both of them, each of them is good for different things. But I don't know much about OBS, so I'm not really in a position to talk about how to use it. I've been using Xsplit for, I want to say 6 or 7, 6 years ish, because we didn't have it for the first headshots. Twitch didn't exist for the first headshots. And the last thing you need is a service. You need a streaming service to connect to talk about. Let me switch. Yeah, the first headshots was in 2013. Oh no, it wasn't. The first headshots was in 2012. That's my room camera. Oh, look at that. I didn't actually check out how the green screen was working out. We'll talk about that in a bit. But yeah, and your service is going to be something like YouTube, Twitch, Mixer, whatever you feel like, whatever you're streaming to in that regard. The focus for tonight is going to be Twitch, and we'll walk through sort of how to connect up your account. Ooh, I'm on the big screen TV. TV me like one of your French girls. But that's my the sound of my studio not being as tidy as it should be because I had a panic attack today. So here we are. But yeah, and part of it is when I say stream everything, I mean stream everything because it's cool to be. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be flawless. It doesn't it's important to be vulnerable. I was thinking of this Hank Green thing that he said a long time ago, where he said, often what you will do is you will spend a lot of effort making it look like it doesn't take a lot of effort. But the reality is that we now live in a world where it is okay to be weird and awkward on the internet, right? It is okay to show those parts of yourself, and everyone sort of has a working knowledge that we're all just kind of getting through that. And especially in a time like this, with a global pandemic, we are in a position to learn things about ourselves and about each other. And I hope that what we come away with is that we understand that making personal connections and maintaining personal connections over distance is a thing that is very important to us. And a thing that is not very important to us is what kind of pants you wear while you do it. Yes, I'm in my pajamas right now. So yeah, you have a source and a software and a service. And you also need a computer. Right now, I'm running the stream off of 2 pretty high-end PCs. You don't have to. Xsplit will warn you. You'll notice at the bottom here, it tells you how much of your computer you're using. It tells you what kind of processor you have, what your frame rate is set to, and how much of your graphics and memory it's using. Right? So if this stuff starts to max out, the answer is turn your settings down. Right? If you're streaming, usually this comes up when you can't see XSplit. Right? Yes, I knew that. I'm good at this. There we are. So yeah, down here at the bottom, we've got frames, FPS, your frames per second, your CPU, and how much it's using, your GPU, which is your graphics processing unit, and your memory. And yeah, when this stuff starts to max out, XSplit will start warning you. And usually that happens when you're trying to stream a game while playing it on the same machine. Right? Especially when we get into like big graphic intensive games, right? Borderlands 3 or really high-end WoW streams and things like that, where it's pushing your memory and graphics a lot, and then on top of that, you're asking it to essentially duplicate everything you're seeing and shoot it out to the internet. Right? So with 2 computers, it gets easier in that sense, but trickier in other senses. But the answer to that is, the first thing you want to turn down if you're doing a game is turn down your graphic settings. In XSplit, you can also adjust the resolution that you're streaming at. Right? So right now we're streaming in 720p, which is sort of the bottom end of HD. And you can scale that down to 480, right? If it's starting to push your machine. Or if you're super cool, you can just scale it way up to 1920 by 1080 or even higher if you have a license. It's worth noting the free version of XSplit will watermark your stream if it is higher than 720. So you'll have a little XSplit watermark in the corner. But 720 is pretty good, and most internet connections are built to handle it. Right now, I'm doing on average, about 400 up, 400 kilobytes a second, which means even like a pretty reasonable internet connection, as long like if you live in an urban area, will handle that. The big thing to watch out for is if you're gonna stream, try not to do it over Wi-Fi, and that has less to do with speed and more to do with consistency of connection. If you start to lose connection, if your connection becomes uncertain, like right, you lose connection to the Wi-Fi, anything happens to that, your stream will immediately go down. Right, it puts a bunch of breaks in it, and that's going to do some weird things to the recordings that it creates, but it's also going to just going to do some weird things in general. So if you can get a wired connection, always do it on a wired connection. Whenever I have to stream like a public event or anything, I'm always like, okay, but we need a wired connection. I have 100-foot Ethernet cable that I'll just bring with me. The other thing that you want to know, and the other thing you always want to be able to do, is if you're streaming something that takes up your whole screen, like a slideshow or a video game or a movie, right? That kind of thing. Having a second monitor is a huge asset. It isn't a must-have, and there are other ways to do it. The important thing is your first rule to break. There's no wired connection to your home office. Like, if your Wi-Fi is good enough, like the other answer is test it, right? And if it's reliable, I live in a big like condo apartment building, so there's like 10 million Wi-Fi networks around me, and so Wi-Fi is super unreliable. Yeah, what you want to be able to do is see what is happening and what is going out to the internet, right? Because what you wind up doing in XSplit is combining a bunch of sources to create a thing that goes out online, right? So if we look at the actual stream that you're seeing, there are 4 separate layers to this. There's the bottom end, which is my capture card for my my video here, which is showing you my screen. There's the webcam, which shows you me. There's a little alert box that is invisible unless something happens. So that's a Streamlabs thing. XSplit is Windows only. That is true. It relies on the .NET library. I don't know anything about streaming from Macs. I don't know if OBS relies, because the thing is that a lot of streaming software relies on .NET, not .NET Core, and .NET only runs on Windows. Mac runs .NET Core, which is almost the same but different. But most things are built on .NET. Hit me up after, Nicole, and we can try and run through some Mac streaming stuff. Yeah, there's a little Streamlabs window that if somebody follows or whatnot, a little thing comes up on the screen. And then there's a video playlist, which is this little call out in the bottom that sort of cycles through all of the different Wootsuite social media stuff. And what XSplit lets me do is make those appear or disappear as I see fit. So, and what you do for that is add sources. So let's add a source. You got lots of options, right? Screen capture lets me pull in a specific monitor, right? I can pull in my other monitor. So this is my other monitor on my main desktop. And here are my notes that I made to make this happen, right? I can pull in a camera. I plugged another webcam into this computer specifically. So, ooh. Let's mute my microphone real quick. There we are. Look, it's me and my actual background. And once the source is in place, I can move it around. I can make it bigger or smaller. And I can adjust a ton of other settings with it. All right, so I can configure the camera directly. I can prioritize frame rate or exposure. I can change the color settings and do some color correction. Obviously, I can chroma key and color key, right? And then I can change the sensitivity of that key, right? It can get really fiddly. I can change the layout in here so I can pixel by pixel move it around, the width and the height, and things like that. I can just flip it, right? Let's turn off that color key because it's really, really annoying me. There we go. Flipping is actually really useful, especially when you're streaming. Oh God, being upside down is really weird. Give me a second here. Nope, there we go. Flipping is really useful when you're streaming like presentations or games or things like that, because it means that you can always be looking up at the thing, right? Especially if you're in the bottom corner. It is weird if you're in the bottom corner and you're constantly doing this, right? So what it depends on is where you're looking, because if you're not looking dead in the camera, then you want to be looking at the thing that you're doing, right? So in this case, when I look over here, what I am actually doing is looking at chat. But it looks like on the outgoing stream, it looks like I'm sort of looking up at the thing that is happening. And we can overlay streams. We can overlay sources, right? So we can do my screen capture again, and we'll capture my monitor with my notes again. There, and can make this real big. And I can drag this over top, and I can resize it, right? So now I'm tiny in the corner. My notes are big up here. And we have sort of a presenter layout. Now I can manipulate my notes and move them around. I can make them appear or disappear. I actually need my notes. And you can get a bunch of custom sources. You can pull from other scenes. So each of these is a scene. Right? I removed all the things from them, but we could pull in this, and let's grab a web page. I'm going to pull up a YouTube video. Thanks to you, OLG gave back 2.5 right? So now you can hear a lottery commercial or a Black Thought freestyle. And we can take that back here, and we can grab that scene. That was in my splash screen, and you'll notice that it reloads every time. I mean, listen, I like to answer people's. So we can change that here. Right? Does it reload the scene? Does it reload on the source show? What's the resolution like? Do we have scroll bars? There's so many fiddly settings, but mostly what we care about is we can grab that and we can pull it in, and I can interact with it here. But because they're connected, they both happen at the same time. So I can move this forward, and it moves it forward there. If I play it, now you'll notice that it doesn't pull in the audio, it only pulls in the video. But it's really good for pulling in. You can get some really, really complicated setups with this if you are willing to spend a bunch of time and mess around with it. You can pull in text, you can pull in media files. So if you've got movies or MP3s or things like that, the intro video, the going live screen, here we'll bop to it real quick. This is a flat graphic and a timer and a video, and that's it. Oh, my transitions are off. That's interesting. Every time it updates, it resets my transitions. Because you can set your transitions here. So we can do wave, right? So now, ooh, and then we're back in. Right. There are tons and tons of ways to fiddle with this. But the important bit is getting your actual signal out. In terms of stuff like cameras and lighting and that kind of thing, the general rule is if you think you are well lit enough, add more lights. And this doesn't have to be like photography studio quality lighting or anything like that. One of my lights is literally just a big lamp. You'd rather have white light than yellow. Be prepared for your headphones to mess up your hair a bunch. Right? And you can get into lighting techniques with like key light, fill lights, and hair lights. But really, the most important thing is that you're not super backlit. Right? If there's a ton of light behind you, then you're going to look like a supervillain as you sit here in shadow. And that maybe, if that's what you're going for, then good. Then you're being intentional about it. But if it isn't what you're going for, then make sure that your lights are in front of you. The other thing that comes up a lot is microphones, right? Do you need a high-tech, cool studio microphone for streaming? No. All you need, like your webcam almost certainly has a built-in microphone, and that'll work fine for like 90% of what you're looking for. The big thing to think about isn't how high-tech is my microphone. It's where is it and what can it hear? Right. So one of the things that comes up, and if you've been on conference calls with people on laptops, you know that this happens. Is somebody will have a hot mic and they'll type and it sounds like an earthquake, which because you're wearing headphones goes directly into your teeth. So if that is a thing that is a concern for you, then it's worth having a mic that you can try and move around. Again, like having an external webcam means you can get it a little farther away. I am the world's loudest typer. And one of the consequences of that is I try and make sure my mic is actually up here. And even then, it still picks up my typing pretty well. Because I am the world's loudest typer. You can max out like the gain on your microphone. You can, right? Like you can do a lot of stuff. But really, unless you are either being really loud, right? And I am pretty loud as a person. But unless you are being really loud or producing music, right, in which you are singing much louder than you are talking, full body blogger seems like an excellent tagline for your website, Noisy. But yeah, if you were making music and you have access to better microphones, use them. All you need is an interface for your microphone to talk to your computer, right? Most soundboards and PAs will have a USB out. And you can just, other things your microphone will be able to hear, your chair, everything you do with your chair. Yeah. If you have access to music quality microphones, all you need is a way for them to talk to your computer, right? All XSplit cares about, and we can click the cog and go directly to the audio settings, is what is the computer noise that should be making, and what microphone does it pick up. Right, that's it. You just select them out of here. You can put a delay on them. There's some built-in noise canceling and silence detection. If you have, my microphone records in mono for reasons. So I actually copy the left channel over to the right channel to make it come through in stereo. So you got a lot of options, but really it's just picking from drop downs. You can set your delay and your volume range. And that's all you really need for mics. And the ultimate thing you can do, and we're going to talk about this a bit more later, there's a record option. You can just make a local recording whenever you want. Right? So if you change anything, if you are curious about how it's going to sound, if you're curious about how it's going to look, just do a local recording and look at it. And if it makes you happy, then you're good to go. Right? If you do a local recording and you listen to it and you're like, you're probably still good to go. We only hear the flaws in our own creations. If you do a local recording and you can't hear anything, then you know that there's a problem and that you can address it. One of the other key audio settings in XSplit is how loud your shit is. So you can mute your microphone or your computer sound. You can also just turn it down. Right? This comes up a lot when streaming games, because what we're trying to do is balance the game audio with the voice audio. Right? You want to be able to talk over it. So often what will happen is you'll turn the microphones up, you'll turn the game audio down, and then you slowly sort of ease it up into place. But this gives you a lot of fine-tuned control over that. And this won't affect what you're hearing in your headphones. This only affects what goes out over the stream. So again, that local recording setting is such a huge asset for this. All right, streaming games. Streaming games is probably the number one use. Will it do auto ducking? What is ducking? If you're asking, will it automatically censor my swears? It hasn't yet. So streaming games is a lot of fun, and it is also probably the number one use for this stuff. And if you're streaming off a PC, it's super easy. Right? In fact, you can just use the game capture, and it will find out for you if you're playing a game and just pick it up. And you add it. Oh, will it automatically compensate audio? No, it's all manual. So if you're having audio balancing troubles, this is one of those things where being able to adjust your stream without breaking the flow of your game is really useful. But no, XSplit will not do that automatically. You have to balance it manually. Yeah, so the game catcher will detect the games that you're streaming, which is the easy part. And the other thing that it's worth noting, if you are using a single screen, if you are using one computer for this whole thing, is under the settings, there are hotkeys. And these are the most useful things. You can use it to switch streams. You can use it to go live. You can switch presets and change sources and turn your mic on and off, which is the most useful thing, even just for a cough option. You can have push to talk. Right? You can start and stop particular outputs. So you've got a lot of options on those hotkeys, and that's one of those things where if you're streaming off a limited setup, it's an easy opportunity to get creative, right? You might not have the tech, but you still have the control. So the third thing is having a service, right? So in order to do that, you need an account. So conveniently, I have a Twitch account. I have several. We broadcast to all kinds of things. And what you'll do to set that up is go to broadcast, click the little cog, and it gives you the option to authenticate into your account, right, for Twitch or YouTube or anything else. Yes, definitely play with OBS. My friend Kaylee does a bunch of work. She does all her streams with OBS, and I am attempting to convince her to also do an OBS tutorial. So the thing that you want to know for connections is what quality of video do you want? Right? There's a lot of easy presets for things like bitrate, and this is the kind of thing that these are good settings for me, but it's really going to depend on your machine. It's really going to depend on your connection. And this is one of those things where you're just going to do half a dozen local recordings, and you're gonna figure it out. Right, but once you're authorized, once you've got your stuff set up, you have the options to automatically save your local recordings. If you have the hard drive space, do it. It's good. It's useful. If you have the hard drive space. This means you've got a local recording that you can put up on YouTube or put up anywhere else. It means you have a recording that isn't subject to the terms of service of the service that you're using. Right? So this is where we get into if you are listening to copyrighted music while you are streaming whatever it is that you are streaming, it won't affect your stream, but it will. Any recordings that are made that are put up after that, Twitch will mute them, and YouTube will content flag them. So it's worth paying attention to that. And if you have your own local recording, you can do whatever you like with it. There are a bunch of playlists on Spotify that are specifically royalty-free music. All right, let's crank some shit up here, which I meant to do, but got distracted with some technical issues. There we go. Now we have music for our stream. But there are a bunch of royalty-free Twitch and YouTube-friendly playlists on Spotify and other things for exactly that reason. If you are listening to a lot of indie artists, right? Anybody who's on Bandcamp is probably not also registered with Brain. Anybody who's on Bandcamp is probably not registered with Twitch's like copyright enforcement and whatnot. But in that case, make sure that you're like crediting them and throwing them and trying to throw them some stuff, because I mean they're on Bandcamp. Come on. Yeah, I don't know. I want to put together some notes for this, like offline, and maybe I'll just throw them up on my website. But I'll throw some links to some playlists in there. Once you are connected to Twitch and streaming, you can go and see cool stuff like this. Man, this is getting a little weird. So this is the Twitch dashboard. So you'll have access to this. This is free. Having a Twitch account is free. Getting access to this is free. The Xsplit version is free. And what the Twitch dashboard lets you do is it lets you see what's going on, right? So we've got our activity. It lets you see chat. So you can keep an eye on that and hear and talk to people and see what they're saying. It lets you... Oh, that's really weird. I don't know that there's a way around that. Oh well, such is life. We can see what our uptime is, how many viewers we have, how many viewers overall, how many followers, active bit rate, right? Is our stream up and down? One of the things that Xsplit's going to do for you when you're live is it's going to keep track of that stuff right up here in red text in this bar. So it'll show you where you're live, how many viewers you have, what your current bit rate is, which isn't super useful, but if it starts to drop, you'll know. Whether you have any drop frames. Right, so if there's an issue with your connection, you're going to start dropping frames, which means that fewer frames are going out that are happening on your computer, and that can be because your computer is working really hard. It can be because there's an issue with your connection, right? Your connection is inconsistent. That's where we get into stuff like streaming over Wi-Fi. It gets into sometimes there's just a problem with Twitch and you're just going to drop frames, right? That's life, but it lets you keep track of that. And the thing that you want to look for is not, are you ever dropping frames? I will admit to being one of those people who, like, if I see drop frames, I low-key freak out a bit, and that's really not necessary. It's if you are consistently dropping frames, or if you are you're seeing that number start to rise really quickly, right? If you're dropping more and more and more frames, that tells you that something somewhere has gone wrong, right? And it will continue to go wrong. And the goal is to have and it will affect the quality of your stream, right? Which the goal is to have a good and coherent stream, whether you are doing embroidery or sewing or video games. So in the stream dashboard, yeah, we can see what's going out. This is a really useful thing. If you're working off of one monitor, pull this up on your phone. Right? If your phone can do it, if you've got the bandwidth for that, because then you can at least see. Right? You can also just keep chat up on your phone, and or that kind of thing. Right, but that's an option. And you have a couple of useful actions here. You can edit your stream info. So every stream has a title. It doesn't have to be formatted like this. I picked this up from Adam Coble, I think. But I like it, where I just talk, like I have a little stupid thing about what I'm streaming, and then I have like the actual game that I'm playing, so that when people see the actual title, they can see the game I'm playing. Your go live notification is for people who follow you, because if they have notifications turned on, they'll get an email, and the subject of that email will be whatever you put in here. Your category, so usually this is a game, but there are also categories for creativity, for art, for science and tech, and things like that. And then you can also add tags. So our default tags, I think, were IRL and creative and English, because we're streaming in English. And we can add, I usually always add LGBT. And today we are educational and family friendly. And when we finish this, I'm going to switch over to Final Fantasy. And then what I'm gonna do is switch over all this stuff to reflect the new thing that I'm streaming. And what this is gonna do, the most important thing that this does is it tells Twitch how to sort my content so that it can put it in front of people. Right? I won't say that you need viewers to have a successful stream, but it helps and it feels cool. So it is a good time. And one of the ways to do that, especially one of the ways to do that and bring in random people, is make sure that Twitch knows where to put you so that people who are looking for that kind of thing can find it. Right? Number one rule on the internet: nobody knows to look for you unless you tell them how to. And you can raid people. So raiding is a Twitch practice where usually when you're wrapping up, you will say, hey, everybody go over here. And this was a thing that the community generated and the community started doing, and then Twitch built in a bunch of utilities to help make that happen. And so what right now what you can do is you can pick between your the people you're following, and you can send everybody over there, and they will see and on their channel they'll see, oh, there's a raid from this person and this many people have come over. So in this case, OTP is my friend Jeff, who also streams in the same time slot as me because he's the villain and because Sunday nights are the night that he is free. And he streams cool puzzle platformers and that kind of thing, and we will send to him when we are done. So, the last section I had for this in my notes was troubleshooting. And part of this is like, troubleshooting is basically my whole life. It's literally my career. And it is in itself its own game, right? This is inherently a thing that you build yourself to suit your needs, and that means that ultimately you are the source of documentation, you are the source of order and control, you are the only person who knows which pieces go where and why. It is useful to write that down so that later, when there's a problem with it, you can come back to it. But the big issues that come up is camera stuff. So if your camera isn't working, right, you can come in here and you can use the standard settings, or you can configure them manually. So if I go to configure video input, this will pull up my Logitech software and I can troubleshoot it directly from here. I can also set the output. So, and this is what my actual output size is. So I can raise up my output size to 720. Right? And I've got a little bit of letterboxing. There we go. And then it fixes itself. Audio. The biggest thing with audio is your stuff doesn't have any sound. I will admit that there are several streams where someone will duck into chat like 10 minutes into the stream and they're like, we can't hear you. And I'm like, and it is because I either just haven't unmuted the microphone or I didn't double check my audio settings. When in doubt, your computer hates staying on the same microphone. So it is always worth checking these settings before you go live. And yeah, when in doubt, just do a local recording and pull it in and listen to it, and then you'll know. And then you'll know for sure. I usually spend about 15 minutes before stream sort of doing a little checklist of stuff that both helps me get psyched up for that, but also puts me at ease mentally that, yes, things are working the way they're supposed to. The other thing that comes up is audio sync. And this is syncing your audio with your camera. And this can be a challenge because it is complicated. Right now, I still have a problem I have to troubleshoot. It's on my list with our main streaming computer where the video and audio are out of sync. And it's because I have problems with I think it's problems with my USB bus, but that isn't really a thing I can do anything about without just replacing it. So then I'm not going to do that. So here we are. But what you can do is cheat. So what you can do is, if we set up the audio, so now we're setting it up to use the mic. I should do that. There we go. I can set an offset. All right, so I can use this offset. So in this case, for the actual stream that you're watching right now, and the this version of my face, my audio is behind my video by about a second and a half. And you can do this. You can do this at the audio source. You can also do it directly in here, right in the delay. You can get an audio preview. The challenge for this is if you're streaming off the same computer. The challenge is any computer where you can hear yourself. Your audience can also hear you, which means they will hear you through your microphone and through the audio preview. So it's weird, right? You wind up doubled or delayed or that kind of thing, or speech jamming yourself. But yeah, you can set up, if you're out of sync, the easiest thing to do is just set up a delay. And just fiddle with the numbers until you get one that works. And the way you do that is you clap your hands. Right? Just like they do it in the movies with a clapper. You just clap your hands, and then you adjust the delay until the sound of hand clapping happens when your hands meet. And if you fudge it by like 10 or 20 milliseconds, nobody will notice or care. Yeah, that was all I had prepared. Right? Setting up sources, navigating the software, connecting to services, doing a bit of troubleshooting. Do y'all have any questions? Or is this giving you what you need to sort of get started on this? It's also worth noting those as the video file for this stream just passed a gig, that those local recordings can get real big, real fast. The other piece of advice I have is always do your hair before stream. Shave, do your hair. Streaming, like street performing or acting or anything else, is as much about charm as it is about quality of content. Right, being a great juggler does not draw you crowds. Being charming and interesting draws you crowds, and part of that is doing your hair and making sure that you're sort of dressed. Because if you feel cool and confident, then other people will feel cool and sort of gravitate toward that. So much like doing anything else, it's always really fun to stream after you've just had a really nice haircut. Though note that you are probably going to squash it down with headphones. And I don't recommend necessarily the one headphone style, but I find that if I have both headphones on, I talk really loudly, so it's weird. It weirds out my brain. So one headphone is my look. But yeah, ultimately the stakes have never been lower. I don't know how to. Again, I don't know how to tell you how to have a successful Twitch career. I don't have one of those, but I know how to navigate the fiddly bits of doing the thing.